Joe Pruitt. I'm the publisher and /CEO of Aftershock Comics, and you're watching The Experience.
What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. That's Dan.
We don't talk about Bruno, no.
We do talk about Bruno, but not the same one.
Right.
We talk in my house. We talk about the Bruno movie starring Sacha Baron Cohen and how terrible it was. By the way,
I don't know of any Sacha Baron Cohen movie that I thought was good. So
he was very good in The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Have not seen that. I want to. So I will hold judgment on that.
But I will say it is an Aaron Sorkin movie, so it's kind of hard to screw up.
True.
You know,
there's a few I still need to see. I need to see the Being the Ricardos as well.
Yes. I will say don't watch Being the Ricardos and instead watch The Trial of the Chicago 7. Also, shout out Razzie Awards came out.
How'd that go?
Bruce Willis has his own category.
I did see that because he's cranking out these cheap ass movies.
Worst performance by Bruce Willis in a 2021 movie. So,
I hope he shows up.
Well, that's something I've heard is that these actors will gladly accept their Razzies because you don't get a Razzie if they expect you to make garbage.
Yeah.
You get a Razzie if they're like, really, you can do better. So,
yeah. But I think if he gets his own category, he should at least present it.
Right. Worst performance by me in a movie starring me in 2021.
Yes. Yep.
Another piece of media news that has consumed more of my time than it probably should have. The Kitten Bowl is not going to be on Hallmark Channel this year during the big game. Right. Because Hallmark Channel is going a different direction.
Alligators?
No, just more blonde women who come home to their small rural town from their job in the big city and fall in love with the lumberjack. Pretty much.
Yep.
But somebody decided that I should make a bid on it to run it here on The Experience.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Not well. I mean, because Great America GAC Media is also involved and they have more money, but not like a lot more money. So my offer of $50 and a ham sandwich might hold up.
We can add cheese to the ham sandwich. I'll back it. I'll put the cheese.
Right. Dan will throw in for cheese. Yeah. After his wildly successful Kickstarter, Dan wants to throw in for cheese.
Gotta help the channel where I can.
All right. So this is In Stores This Week, where we talk about books that are in stores this week. And to answer the question of what books are in stores this week, the answer is none.
Yep.
Because it snowed. Books could not make it to places where it didn't snow or where it only slightly snowed from Diamond.
Wait, I'm in California. Does that mean we got our books?
No, it couldn't make it to places where it didn't snow.
Oh.
Or where it only slightly snowed. So, yeah, most of the books from not Marvel and not DC are delayed. A lot of stores are saying they'll get them tomorrow at the earliest. So while we're talking about these books, please just know that these books will be in your store this week sometime, not necessarily tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, we do call the store in stores this week, not necessarily in stores Wednesday.
Right. And, DC books are, kind of the release date is Tuesdays now. And Lunar was able to get their books out for DC, and Penguin was able to get their books out for Marvel. Some of them. So just, as I always say, when you go into your local comic shop, be cool. So,
at this point, it would be better if each store had their own little printing press and they could just send digital files and you could print the number of books you need.
Yeah, I was always a big fan of the idea that release dates were store-based instead of industry-based. So when I get my books, I can put them out and sell them. When you get your books, you can put them out and sell them. The odds of me getting my books so far ahead of you that I'm going to have a strategic advantage is small.
Yeah.
Especially if we're in the same market. So that's something that's some inside baseball. That's a bigger problem than.
Yes, but if you get your books like a week before me and your readers then read their books and go online and start spoiling all the stories that my readers can't get, then they're going to be upset and maybe not even bother to buy their books.
Right. I mean, that's fair. Like I said, it's one of those things is that it's a more nuanced conversation than that. But
yeah.
BBB Hardcore Comics. If you have a snowblower, especially. So should we start with a book? Because my book of the week is not what most people are going to think my book of the week would be.
Okay.
So we'll start with what is not my book of the week.
All right. Yeah, I'm done with this series.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I don't know where they're going with this. I don't know what they're trying to do anymore. It's a neat concept that basically you have the ability to back yourself up onto the web, and now they're creating all these duplicates of her.
What's that movie or show where you can upload your consciousness into a husk?
Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That made a lot more sense than this.
Because that was a single consciousness.
Right.
These are duplicating them into husks, and yeah, it's just getting, I don't know, it's not going anywhere.
If 5, and let me check here and see if 5 is the last issue of the dot self. If 5 is the last issue, I can bring myself to read the last issue.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, then yeah, I'm done. It just, it doesn't sound like 5 is the last issue, so I'm done.
Yep.
It just isn't doing anything for me.
Yeah, I got that same feeling. And this week we didn't have a lot of books to choose from for review, so this one stayed around, but after reading it, it's like, maybe we should just drop it.
Yeah, there were other books I would have rather read twice. Jay Burns, I feel like uploading consciousness is becoming the new zombie trend. I don't think that that's exactly correct, but you're not far off.
Yeah. You could do a lot with zombies and go different directions, and this one, no. It's a clever concept, but it just doesn't go anywhere.
Right, and I like Chris Sabella a lot.
Uh-huh.
But this is just a miss.
Yeah.
Speaking of books that I thought were a little bit of a miss, but were better than Dot Self. This book for me was great, but it wasn't continuing the process they were making with the character.
Well, I think they had to do a Book of Boba Fett here and step out and kind of establish the evil or the Ernie character, or the whatever, the demon part of it.
Right. No, that's exactly what they've done. This is the Mandalorian bits of the Book of Boba Fett, right? Like this is, they had me so hooked with the, this is like an origin story kind of thing. This is more of a new rehashing of this character. And this issue to me felt like a step backwards. Now, any evil Ernie is better than no evil Ernie. Like, we spent a lot of years with no evil Ernie.
Yes, we did. And that Arthur Saddam cover.
That is fire.
That is one of the best things Arthur has done in a very long time. And Arthur, this is his wheelhouse, So,
right. The only one that is better, in my opinion, a better cover, in my opinion, for this is the Ken Hazer TMNT homage cover. But that's just because it's a TMNT homage cover. Like, let's be real.
Right.
No, like I said, I felt this was a little bit of a step back from the first two issues, what I felt like were genuinely new and undiscovered Evil Ernie archetype.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with it just because you need it, but it felt like a little bit of a let off the gas.
Yeah. Though I am kind of curious what's going to happen now that his girlfriend has seen him as their Evil Ernie.
True.
It has a good cliffhanger. So.
All right. Next book up is Bylines in Blood #2, which Dan didn't get a copy of.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Again, sometimes, it's really hard for me to take photos of every page and send them to Dan.
Just FaceTime. We'll read it together.
That's fair. I could probably do that. I probably should do that. Anyhow, so Bylines in Blood is this story about the search for truth and what is truth in a world where everybody decides what their own truth is. In the first episode, this main character who calls herself Lady Dick finds out that her good friend has been murdered and goes on a hunt to figure out who killed him. In this issue, she has a run-in with the person. And come to find out they have some weaponry and technology that's not available to the masses. And that only one or two people maybe could have access to this. And she makes a decision about which one it is, and she goes deeper into the beast of the corrupt world in which she lives, only to get the crap kicked out of her a couple of times. And there's a big twist that is very interesting to me to see where it goes. So Bylines in Blood really, really has me hooked.
Cool. I like the creative team of Erica Schultz, Van Jensen, and Anik.
Yeah, no, and by the way, the art in this book is very unique. It's not like something I've seen elsewhere in terms of style. And I know Van has a unique style, but it's the inside is very colorful, but then it's muted at the same time, and the use of negative space is very interesting, like in that cover I was showing. And Erica Schultz, and Van are writing a really cool story here. So
cool.
All right. This is Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons. Dan?
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
Okay.
I must have missed this one in the Dropbox.
This might be my favorite book of the week. First thing is Jim Zub, who is pretty much the quintessential comic writer for D&D now. And it's officially D&D Rick and Morty, but there's very little Rick and Morty in it. It's Mr. Meeseek, or I don't know how he's pronounced, but
yeah, the title is Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons: The Meeseek's Adventure #1.
Yes, this is the basic premise. There is a box that if you press the button, Mr. Meeseek pops up. He'll do one task, whatever you ask of him, and he'll complete it. And then he disappears again. He can't disappear until he's completed the task, and he's pretty much nigh invulnerable while he's trying to complete the task. Well, this box pops up in the middle of basically a adventure between a rogue and a wizard, and they've discovered the box, and it just leads to all of Mr. Meeseek seems to realize that he's in a D&D game. So when the last person to press the box says, get me a kingdom, I want my own kingdom, and then dies, Meeseek goes off on his own because he knows that if he's going to get a kingdom, he needs more XP and he needs to kill an adventure. And it's just basically a romp through the idea of Dungeons and Dragons from this bizarre character, and it's just so much fun. There are little in jokes for D&D players, but it's definitely a Rick and Morty thing, and we only see Rick for like 2 panels in the entire thing. But it's just a silly, fun adventure that I smiled through most of the reading of it.
Yeah, I missed this one, and it kind of bums me out. I am not a Rick and Morty fan, by and large. I do enjoy Dan Harmon, so I should like Rick and Morty. But I think this has to do with when Rick and Morty came out and how hard it was to consume for a minute. That it turned me off to it. But the Rick and Morty comics have always been great. So I'm a little bummed I didn't get to read this. But Dan, is this a good time for us to talk about Vox Machina?
Sure.
I've watched 6 episodes. Is that how many there are now?
Yes.
The second 3 make me angry.
Why?
Maybe because I'm triggered. It feels like it's a campaign that I would be playing in. And I don't want to see that on screen. I've seen my team fail relentlessly. Like, you have one little minor spoiler. You have 1 vial of holy water. I throw it off the cliff. You're fighting vampires. Don't care.
Yes.
Like, that's a thing that would happen in my campaigns.
Yeah.
Overall, it's been a really fun show, but it has been super gory. Like, way more than I expected.
Yeah.
So, just if you haven't watched it, go get caught up.
Yeah, Jay, you don't need. That's the neat thing is the animated series lives by itself. You don't have to have watched Critical Role. And I've never seen the first campaign. I've seen one of the adventures from that was an add-on to the first campaign. I watched more of the second campaign. Vox Machina is the first campaign, so you don't need to have seen it. It is a straightforward adventure show. There are some nods to it. If you are a critter, if you are somebody who follows it, there's a lot of little Easter eggs in there, but it's like the Marvel Universe. If you're a Marvel fan, you pick up on all these little things. If you're not, they don't throw you out of it. It is really well done, well acted. A lot of surprising voice actors popping up. The first 2 episodes have David Tennant in it.
And he's not even playing Scrooge McDuck.
No, he's not even. He's barely Scottish.
It's true. He is barely Scottish. It's weird.
Yeah, and
kind of like Arcane, yes.
Yeah, but there's a lot more humor to it. Well, I haven't seen Arcane. There's a lot of humor to it. There's a character named Scanlan who is going to say and do all the things that if you ever play D&D, you've got that one campaign guy that says all the inappropriate things and tries to do all the inappropriate things. That's Scanlan. So it is a lot of fun. I'm 6 episodes in as well, and I'll be talking about it tomorrow on the Dan Wickline show.
And we'll save this for tomorrow, Dan, but did you ever listen to or watch Nerd Poker?
No.
So this was a D&D campaign led by Brian Posehn, who at the time was writing Deadpool when this dropped.
Yeah.
But it consisted of other comedians like Blank Patch and people like that. But Patton Oswalt was a recurring on it as a bard who sang filthy, filthy songs.
Yes, that is Scanlan.
That is Scanlan to a T. When I was listening to a show, and I stopped listening to it just because it got confusing with the campaign I was playing. Like I couldn't remember what I heard in the podcast and what actually had happened in my game the week before.
Yeah.
So I just stopped listening, but their goal at the time was to get Vin Diesel to come and play. But they were all celebrity comedians. It was great. So I will probably, if he'll have me, join Dan tomorrow to talk about Vox Machina.
Oh yeah,
because I have many thoughts.
We're going to talk about Jack Reach or the new Reacher show, and then we're going to talk about Vox Machina. So, also a buddy of mine, I should plug this now that we're talking about it. A buddy of mine who moved from LA to Tennessee, he used to be an editor over at IDW, named Dan Taylor. He also did the Hero Happy Hour comic. He is starting up a live play show called Catacombs and Comedians at one of the comedy clubs in Tennessee, and is going to basically do a live D&D game with stand-up comedians. So that's going to be debuting soon. And when he's getting ready to roll it, when it's actually going to roll out, I'll get him on the Dan Wickline show and we'll talk about it.
Nice.
Yep.
I'm very excited for something like this to consume.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's move on to Doctor Who.
Yep.
You know, I didn't watch much of the Jodie Whittaker Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been feeling really removed from Doctor Who.
I could see that.
This is my jam. Because the Empire of the Wolf is a Doctor Who story with which I'm very familiar in the universe, right? This is when I was at my height of being into Doctor Who.
Yes.
So this makes me feel less removed from the fandom of Doctor Who.
I'm with you on that. I love the fact that it's the 8th Doctor and the 11th Doctor, and then Rose, who was pretty much the companion for the 9th and 10th Doctor. There's this neat synergy of these three never really did anything together, but, you know, they still pull together and make this work. And you've got two versions of Rose. And that is not a good look for her on the cover, but it's is a fun series. Jodie Houser really gets these characters, and it does kind of re-spark that love for Doctor Who. I kind of dropped out on Doctor Who into the final season of Peter Capaldi. Not on purpose. I just kind of never got to finish it. And then I watched the first episode of Jodie Whittaker, and while I thought she did a good job, it just didn't feel like a Doctor Who adventure to me. So I didn't go and watch anymore. And now, you know, all the rumors is that Russell is coming back. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, now that Russell Davies is coming back, I will jump back in.
Yeah,
I think, and I'm gonna go back and rewatch all of the Jodie Whittaker stuff. But
yeah, I'm not someone who has a problem with the fact that it was a female doctor. I'm good with that. I like that idea, but I'm curious who. I mean, there's been rumors that he's going to try to get David Tennant to come back.
Yeah, I've been camp Idris Elba. Even for a one shot, like a special, a one off.
Mm-hmm.
And then because then Heimdall could be the Doctor.
Yeah. I would love to see them do a bait and switch. I would love them to announce a really wild name. Like everybody's going to go, what? That's insane. And then he becomes the Doctor for like 20 minutes of an episode and dies. And then we get the Doctor they want to use. Right. I think that would like destroy all the BS that comes along with picking a new Doctor and all the hate and love. Just a bait and switch.
Yeah, no, like I'd love for it to be like, okay, Prince Harry is the new Doctor. Right? That would be great. And then he's the new Doctor for like 15 minutes.
No.
I would love it.
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is the Doctor. He's there 15 minutes. And then they switch over, and it's the guy from the Our Flag Means Death, you know?
See, I would love for a more comedic Doctor Who take. Mm-hmm. So somebody like Noel Fielding or the other guy who's on Bake Off with him right now. or what is it, Matt Berry, who was in the IT Crowd,
Yeah.
somebody like that.
I'd like him to go completely off book and go with Randy Feltface from Australia,
Okay,
a puppet
like
doctor.
just something ridiculous for a one shot to kind of blanch everybody's taste buds, get them
Yeah.
clean,
Mhm.
and then all right, here's your doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Or just do something like it's Ian McKellen for one episode.
oh my God, Ian McKellen with companion Patrick Stewart.
Oh yes. Yep. I wanted, and okay, we're going on about Doctor Strange. All I wanted was one episode with the Peter Capaldi doctor where Craig Ferguson showed up.
A Dream Boys reunion.
Yes, exactly.
You didn't think I was going to pull the name of their band, did you?
I actually expected you to.
All right, that's fair.
So.
All right, but this book made me feel like I was at home, so that's good.
Yeah, and this is the wrap up. So,
all right, on to a book that made me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, this one was strange.
Yeah. This is the third volume of Faithless.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't read the first two volumes, you're jumping in on the third act of a play.
Yeah.
But they didn't give you a good place to jump in.
Yeah. What's funny, this is the second book that we're starting a third act of this week. And the other one was a great place to jump in. This one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off uncomfortable. And then you get into the story and it's like, oh, clearly I've missed a ton.
Yes.
So before you pick this one up, I would recommend heading into your local comic shop and trying to get Faithless volumes 1 and 2 in trade paperback. It is a horror psychological thriller. It's Brian Azzarello written, with art by Maria. How do you say that? Lavalette?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyhow, they've been together on all 3 volumes. I thought it was a good book, but it was just clear that I was behind the question. You're behind the behind the 8 ball on it.
Yeah.
So, but some of the covers on this are wild. So make sure you check them out. Also, not for children.
No.
Also, beware of hentai.
Yes.
But if you could pick up the first 2 volumes, I would. It still seems like an interesting story. Lee Bizzle has a question. For you guys, what's one of the most vexing plots in comic books that immediately makes you uninterested in reading the comic? Mine is New York is under siege. I don't care about stuff like that. New York is under siege. Don't care.
Yeah.
It won't turn me off. Doesn't bother me. My problem is if I pick up an issue 1 and I don't know what the hell we're talking about by the end of issue 1, I'm out. There are writers who can get away with it for a few issues with me. You know, a Cullen Bunn, Matt Fraction, Brian Azzarello even. We just talked about Brian Azzarello. Chris Priest. Some of these guys, because I know how they write, I'm willing to give them a little bit of lead time. But if I pick up something that I don't know, and in the first 20 pages, you don't clearly tell me what kind of book I'm reading, I'm not going to keep reading.
For me, I'm not a fan of, well, there's a specific plot that got me, and it's when you take a character and you throw them against somebody that is just so OP, and then you try to make them relevant. And this came up. I'm a huge Daredevil fan. I've collected Daredevil most of my life. went back and filled in most of the issues I missed. I've got maybe a handful I'm still looking for. But when Ann Nocenti put Daredevil against Mephisto, I got so out of that whole thing because it's, it's not what that character is. You take a street level hero and you put him against basically Satan.
Right.
Why do you do that? Yeah. That doesn't work for me.
So, Drew says he remembers Saga #1 being a what the hell moment. I remember that as well, but I remember thinking, oh, this is just super high fantasy sci-fi. I knew what I was reading. I didn't understand the full complexity of the plot that would develop, but I knew it was super high. I understood the assignment. If I don't understand the assignment, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Burns, super off topic, and you can answer later. Is there ever a time you and Dan would look at fan submitted books? I'd love for y'all to read Black Alpha and tell me your thoughts. Jay,
is that Tom Rash's book?
I don't know. Jay, who wrote it? But the answer to the question is this particular show is in stores this week. So if we're trying our hardest to review books that are out this week. It is Tom Rash's book.
Yeah, I've had Tom on the show,
mm-hmm.
and Black Alpha is an interesting character that he's been doing for a long time.
Right.
So
it would probably be a better fit for Dan's other show, the Dan Wickline show, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 p.m. 2 Pacific here on The Experience. But this show is about helping people know what to look for when they go into their local comic shops.
Mm-hmm.
And because that one's not a wide release, it would be a tough fit for this show.
Yeah. But I love Tom, and Black Alpha is a great book. It's something he's been working on for a very long time. It's his heart, So.
Yep, and I'm a big fan of Tom as well. From the time we had him on Dan's show. So, speaking of people I'm a big fan of and books that have been around for a long time.
Yes.
Fred Van Lente and Jennifer Blood.
Mm-hmm.
This book is finally starting to come into the Jennifer Bloodness of it all. Right? Like, we had a few issues where it was like,
Mm-hmm.
And then, this book has really started to kind of feel like a Jennifer Blood book over the last 2 issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically an origin story.
But it's not. It's an origin story for it's not a true origin story. It's a reboot origin story. Right?
No, it's sort of.
Yeah, I will say this story starts to, I felt like it was fishtailing a little the first few issues, and it's starting to come around and head straight ahead now.
Mm-hmm.
So where this book takes you and where it sort of leaves off, there are at least 2 more issues left in the series after this, and it's setting you up for a very satisfying end.
Yes. But it could also be setting you up for more adventures.
Oh, certainly. Well, and when I say very satisfying end, I mean to this particular story arc.
Right.
I don't mean like, oh, it's setting you up for the end of the character or any of that by any means. It's setting you up for wherever this ends, you're going to be like, all right, I need a cigarette.
Mm-hmm. But in a way, Fred is coming along and making this character his own.
In a big way.
It's like, hey, Garth's stuff's over there, and this is what I'm doing. And that's kind of ballsy to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just trying to do what Garth did. So
it's true. And I, like I said, I'm liking where this book is coming into.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. This is another one Dan didn't get to read. This is Land of the Living Gods, #1 from Aftershock. There are only 2 this week that I didn't have for you, Dan.
Okay.
Land of the Living Gods is set in Johannesburg in the far future. The book itself contains a lot of African and South African mythology and sci-fi, but it's set in a dystopian future, which seems to be a BBB Hardcore says there's another Jennifer Blood coming after this one. I don't know that. I don't have that confirmation, but I'm glad. So it's about this girl who's on the cover who is an albino. In a world where no one else is. And it's her and her mother, and they are practitioners of what seems to be a long since forgotten and ancient religion. That gives them, kind of a way to keep going in this dystopian future. They have a sentient plant that lives with them. And they're protected by the old gods, the old spirit gods. And it's the first book kind of sets you up and kind of it's a launchpad book. It gets you to a point where you start to see, okay, this is how this plant interacts with these people. And this is how, I guess, the rest of the world sees them. So I'm having a hard time not spoiling it, because something that happens in the first 3 pages is a huge spoiler. And unfortunately, you can't really talk about the rest of the book without talking about that. So it's an interesting book with a lot of really cool mythology that you might not have been super exposed to if you've not studied African mythology. So
cool.
We have another mythology book coming that maybe is a little more familiar to people.
Yes.
Should we do that one next and just stick with a mythological theme, or should we save it because of how good it was?
Let's just go ahead and do it.
Norse mythology, #1, volume 3, #1.
Yep. Okay, you should be buying this just for P. Craig Russell's art. We don't get enough of it, and it's gorgeous. Then you got Neil Gaiman telling a classic Thor story that in very classic Norse mythology style. It's fun if you kind of picture Chris Hemsworth in this, but it's a different version of Thor and it's all basically Thor trying to get himself a cauldron to brew some beer and maybe F up some giants while he's at it.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple concept, and Neil Gaiman just nails it. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
but the art is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is just gorgeous. If you're a Norse mythology fan, just a mythology fan, or a P. Craig Russell or a Neil Gaiman fan, this is a good book to pick up. And this starts their 3rd volume, but it's a self-contained story. Everything you need is right here.
Yeah. Did you know that he and his ex-wife Amanda and their son have basically been trapped in Australia and New Zealand more than Australia since the pandemic started?
I heard about that. I didn't know they had actually gotten divorced, but yeah, I heard that they had been trapped together.
Well, they did a conscious uncoupling kind of thing. Amanda Palmer is a unique. I love Amanda Palmer, so I'm trying not to sound like an asshole. She's a unique person with a unique personality.
Yes.
So them being together, I probably was just a little too constrictive for either of them, but they're divorced, but they still live together and stuff
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been stuck in Australia since, the whole thing started. And it's, been fun to watch. I'm friends with Neil on social media, and, it's been fun to watch him post about adventures with his kid going through this. They went to a flea market the other day, and he was buying his kids like 70s and 80s horror comics that he read growing up, like that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Next book is well, you've met her sister, you've met her mother. Now meet the weird one. Draculina, #1.
Yeah. This is odd. It's not what I expected when I picked up the book. It's kind of a demented version of Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
She basically, there's 2 Draculinas. One is a teenager and the other is definitely not. And they switch places after so long. While one's asleep, the other one takes over. It's pretty odd.
Yeah, I am unsure on a number of levels.
Yeah.
I thought the story was great. I thought Chris Priest did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
But yeah, has there been Draculina stories? Do you know, in the old Harris or Erie or any of those books?
Honestly, I believe she's popped up a couple times, but not a lot. She popped up some in the old magazine days.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, there hasn't been a ton of backstory with Draculina.
No.
And the result is that, unlike when I pop into a new Vampirella book and I understand the mythos, I don't fully understand Draculina's mythos. So
yeah, I haven't read that much with her, but yeah, she's also supposed to be from Draculon and all of that. So, which depends on which origin story you go with.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is a weird one for me.
Mm-hmm. The most recent thing I've read with her in it, besides this comic, was what is her name? When we did Dynamite Books, we put out a Vampirella book with the woman who wrote Sonia Blue, the sunglasses at After Dark. I got it here, but it's under a stack of stuff. But she also wrote Swamp Thing for a while. They just put out a collection of her Swamp Thing book. But she wrote a novel that had flashbacks to Draculon, and Draculina was in it.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't have a strong enough background in the character to know. And to be honest, if it wasn't Christopher Priest, that's what we were talking about earlier. I'm not sure I would keep reading this book if it wasn't Priest writing it. Like, that earns it some time for me to figure out what I'm getting into.
For me, there was enough in it that makes me go, okay, what are they doing? I'd look at issue 2, and that might just be Priest, but there's a concept here that's I'm trying to figure out. But there's also a little awkwardness about this obviously young girl keeps waking up in beds with dead, naked guys.
Yeah.
That's a little awkward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to Apache Delivery Service #2.
Yes.
Which, again, I said this last time. This feels like a spiritual successor to Black Badge, which was another Matt Kint book from that he had come out from Boom.
Yeah.
So that's that's what this feels like. But this is a Vietnam kind of have we heard this story before is kind of where I'm trending here. I feel like I have.
Missing gold or a stash of gold in Vietnam that soldiers are looking for instead of doing their job.
I kind of feel like this is a little bit the origin of Deathstroke that got told in the Arrow show. You know, like this kind of people off of the path where they need to be in a war zone. You know, you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
A little bit Vietnam horror, which came out from Behemoth last year. A little bit Platoon.
Yeah. And the fact that we're getting witches and stuff.
Right. Now we're getting some horror and sci-fi, some horror elements for sure that I'm not that do make it unique and different.
Yeah. Though I got to say at this point, every time he says, I'm not Apache, I'm Navajo, it's now going to, and I get correcting people if that was your thing, you know, if you were a Navajo and they kept calling you Apache, but it's starting to get to the I'm not even supposed to be here today thing.
Right. And if that pays off as it's, oh, if you were Apache, you'd be dead right now.
Yeah.
But because you're Navajo, you're not. Okay. Sure. But yeah, it's feeling a little catchphrasey. It's feeling a little bit, did I do that? Or what you talking about, Willis?
Yeah.
For me. It's a second issue. It's still story development. I'll be honest, the art style in this that Tyler Jenkins is using has never been one that super appeals to me. But I think it's good for this type of storytelling.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this book. It's definitely not what I would normally pick up. This is a little off the beaten path for me, but there's something about it. I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen next, but I am enjoying it. It's a unique story.
Yeah. Last book of the week, Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer, number 3.
What? That's the last book of the week?
Yep. We only had 10 books.
Oh, you're right.
It's a small comic week.
For some reason, I forgot. I knew we had 3 Dynamite books, and I forgot that Evil Ernie was a Dynamite book.
Right, and I couldn't believe we didn't have the Vampirella special.
I thought we did enough Dynamite. We had 3 Dynamite books.
No, I understand. Like, I just couldn't believe that wasn't one of them we chose.
Yeah. So Spike's
I'm glad
back.
we picked what we picked, but yes, Spike is back, and he's spikier than ever.
Yes, he is. I love the fact that it's 20, 30 years later, and he's still hitting on Buffy.
I could just feel James Marsters' accent coming off the page.
Yep. Which is hilarious since that's not his real voice anyway.
I understand. Like, that's what I mean. Like, but the voice he did in that show, I could just feel it. Like, it dripped off of the words he used, like off of the dialogue in this book. And I'll be honest, I could hear Sarah Michelle Gellar's voice on Buffy for the first time. Like, I think the book is finding its voice in these characters.
Yep, very much so. Still don't like the little girl yet.
Yeah, she's kind of, I'm not sure if she's supposed to be good or bad or what her deal is.
Right.
But she's certainly annoying.
Yes, she is. And she's not really drawn like a lot of times you'd see in a comic book, a cute little girl. She's drawn like a real little girl, you know?
Right.
And I like that fact. She might be a little, is it Mary Sue? I mean, she might have like all the powers needed. She's both a witch and a slayer, you know?
Yeah. She's certainly, what is that phrase? the thing for me about it, right, is that knowing who her mothers were makes me think that maybe she's not wholly human.
Deus ex machina.
Yeah. Well, or she's the product of a spell. Or so, you know what I mean? Like, not a whole, like,
she's not a real child.
Yeah.
Then how would she have the ability, to tap into the Slayer thing too?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, it feels like that would be the direction they would go. But it doesn't make sense with the ability she has. So I'm not 100% sure where I come down on this yet.
Unless she's created by a magic spell by the two of them using Buffy's DNA. Or like something of Buffy.
And that's something that comes up in this issue, right? Like, that despite Buffy being removed from her, she was not removed from Buffy.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting concept.
And Buffy's powers are working weird. That would make sense if part of her powers were now in this little girl.
It's true. It's true. No, there's a lot still to develop here.
Yes.
But I thought this was maybe the most fun I had reading a book this week. Because it just felt like a show that I've seen.
For me, it was Rick and Morty, then Norse mythology, then this one. But
yeah, and if I had read Rick and Morty, it might have been different. But like, and I Norse mythology to me was what's expected from Norse mythology, so I didn't. This got unexpected quick.
Yeah,
and it ended in a great place. So they keep leaving you on cliffhangers, which means, Dan, when you get the PDF for issue 4, it has to go on the list. So.
Yeah, I know.
If we don't get it, we got to call somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is my pick of the week, but you're in good hands here. It's just continuing that Buffy story. So Dan will be back tomorrow on the Dan Wickline Show, talking about Vox Machina
and Reacher,
and
Reacher, which has already been renewed for season 2. So.
And then Thursday, he'll be breaking down the Book of Bob Fett.
Yes. The Book of the Mandalorian season finale. Where I'm sure we're going to get characters introduced we haven't seen before.
I'm almost certain of it.
Yep. And hopefully the rumored cameo of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if he was in the book, if he was in the show. I am beginning to call this The Legend of Fennec Shand. Which may be a better, more apt title, but we'll solve that when we get to it.
Yep.
So I will be back next week on this show.
And he's going to come up tomorrow and talk Vox Machina with me. So you want to stick around or come by for that.
Yep, absolutely. And so head over to your local comic shop. Be cool. Like I said, there were some shipment delays. Like I said at the top of the show, there were shipment delays due to harsh weather conditions here throughout the Midwest that have caused a delay in shipping books to stores. So just be aware of that. If you need to find a comic shop, this show is brought to you once again by Comic Shop Locator. Visit bit.ly/comic locator. And you can find a comic shop near you.
Or near any place you're visiting.
Yes, or near any place where you might be in the future.
Yes.
What was I going to say? I don't remember. So we will see you guys next week here on In Stores This Week. For Dan, I've been Kyle. Later on.
Sayonara.